Hi, my name is Patrick Earl Ryan. This is from my short story Before Las Blancas, which is from my collection If We Were Electric. What I knew before all of this running away was that I was an explorer. I've mapped my life across the walls of my room with pictures and timelines. I dreamt about everything I could do before I was 18, not the least of which was falling in love. Once, I even made a doll that looked like Aubrey Clyde and wrote my name over the doll's heart and kept it in my closet for 3 days to make him love me back. My mom was throwing her annual crawfish boil when my eyes first caught Neil. All of her PBS employees were there and some of my aunts and uncles too. I blew away from the thick crowd in our backyard like the smoke from the big metal tubs and spent the night by the back shed. I watched my toes wiggling in the damp grass to see if they grow any bigger, and I asked myself where I could find something on me that I didn't already know. My legs have 16 hairs that are black, 28 that are gold. I thought, this is the year I'll discover a new planet, or fly to New York to meet Woody Allen, or kiss Aubrey Clyde in his bed when he doesn't expect it. That's what I thought, but now all of those things seem silly compared to this trip to Las Blancas. Evan, That's a great name, was how Neil introduced himself. Not quite as boring as Neil. Then he set up camp beside me with a plate of food and beer. I already knew who he was. He'd arrived from Auckland a few hours before with his gear, cameras and big lights, black bags with silver rods sticking out of them. My mom had invited him to stay with us for a while. He was a tour guide in New Zealand and made documentaries about weird foods, but I'd only seen one, and it was about pogo sticks in Japan. Mom says you live in the mountains, I said to him. He was sweating and smiling big. The heat from the boil reached us by the shed. I sat there in my shorts and bare feet and smelled the crawdads, the zatarans. It made us smell like real Cajuns. Well, he told me, I've got electricity. I'm not a nature freak. All night we ate little red potatoes with our hands and tried to guess who was drunk and who was stoned. Your Aunt Beth is whacked. I'd put cash on it, he'd say. He smelled like onions, too. I laughed at everything, and he laughed because I laughed. We watched the cockroaches scutter back and forth along the sides of my house, into potted plants, off the sides of wooden planks, into thin crannies on the porch. And all my mom's friends, all the other people mingling in front of us, seemed just as creepy. The party went on as long as my mom could force a drop of juice out of it. When the mosquitoes came out in full force, the petered out men poured their beers into plastic cups and limped out the side gate. Neil and I were so close that our calves were touching, and his big smile made me feel safe. My mind reeled with ideas for the two of us. He could let me tag along on his shoots, or let me bring Aubrey over to be in one of his films. He could show me how to work a camera. I saw why my mom liked him. That shared a bungalow in Naples for a week, and she fell in love with him like she always falls in love with men who drink wine and live in other countries. But I could also see why she still liked him, even though she wasn't in Italy and swooning over every man with an accent. If there's anything that makes my mom like a man, it's getting what she wants. And Neil was as happy-go-lucky as they come. You're a crazy little kid, he told me. After everything was over and the house was in a coma, I watched him make up the living room couch with the spare sheets. His lips were cracked, his shirt was untucked, and the ends wrinkled. Nighty-o, he said, and then he winked at me and went to sleep. That's all, just like that. I knew he wasn't anything like Aubrey Clyde, but the way he looked at me that night, the way he'd shut up and just watch whatever I was doing, under the bull's horn my mother bought in Spain, I stood on my toes to the wood-floored in creek and grinned like I'd just gotten my first kiss. The blinds in the living room, hanging over the big picture window that was put in after I was born, were wide open, and I walked over and shut them. I wondered if I could find my way back without tripping. The shades were still swinging back and forth 10, 11 times, and Neil was wet with moonlight. He was a little star on the couch for me to follow. Thank you.